Mavericks? It's nice to see you here at the Currency Room. This is Rob Reinhold, and I will be flying solo. Ankit has the week off. So let's jump into what happened last week. So let's start first with what's about to happen, because I love March Madness. Now, if you don't know what March Madness is and you don't care, then just go ahead and ignore this a little bit. I don't watch any college basketball the entire year. I have no idea who any players are, who any teams are. But March Madness, where they put 64 teams all up against each other, you win, you go on. You lose, you go home. It, to me, is the best sports event of the entire world, other than maybe World Cup soccer. But March Madness, we do this every year. This is our 9th annual tournament. So, Maverick traders, we will be sending you out an invitation. If you want to make your bracket, we've got some nice prizes for the top 3. Have some fun. If you don't care about this, just ignore the email that we send out. But it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, let's jump into the week here. So last week, we had a few things happen last week. We had pretty much a tale of two halves of the week. The first half of the week was weak equities. It was stronger dollar, weaker Aussie, stuff like that. And then on Thursday, we got a big, massive rally. We'll take a look at the charts here in a second. But we are now solidly back above the 50-day moving average with a big bullish engulfing candle on Thursday and a nice confirmation candle on Friday. So we are ending the week off super, super strong. By the end of the week, the dollar had pulled back for the first week in 5 weeks, but pretty much it was flat until Friday. And we did see the 10-year bonds spike a little bit. We'll take a look at that chart as well. As far as economic news goes, you can see the Canadian GDP came out weaker than expected. The CAD was the weakest Forex currency this week, and it was due to the weakening economic situation in Canada. Australia had weaker than expected CPI. That also weighed a little bit on the Aussie, meaning that the RBA might not need to be as aggressive, which again is going to be overall bearish for the Aussie dollar. And then we got manufacturing numbers on Wednesday and Friday out of the US. The manufacturing PMI was weaker than expected on Wednesday, but Friday was a stronger than expected services PMI. Overall, good news for the US economy. We did get US labor costs as well that came out very, very high. This is what we saw spike the 10-year bond. So let's take a look and see exactly where we are in these markets. We started the week off like this. Last week, we said this was not going to be a great trading week, that pretty much everything was range bound. And the only trade we liked was short Aussie dollar, and that really didn't even do much this week. We think the upcoming trading week is going to be a much better trading week. We did not expect there to be much movement in the markets as far as Forex and crypto went this week. Let's take a quick look at the rundown of equities. You can see that the S&P gained almost 2%, the world index about 1.3%. Crypto got hit, and this all happened on Friday. We'll talk about why this happened here in a second. Gold was strong, oil was strong, everything looked good. Here are the candles that I was talking about. Now you can see that we basically had 7 red candles over the last 2 weeks, and 2 candles completely erased all of those losses. Take a look at where we are. We're above the 50 and below the 20. The 50 sloping up, the 20 sloping down. This is what we call no man's land. There is no clear signal on where equities are going. We are going to be running into some resistance here at the 20-period moving average at 40.60. But until we get a clear break above that point or down below that 39.40, we think we are going to be pretty range-bound here on equities. Last week, this was not a great week. Now take a look at these numbers. These are numbers we typically see in a day. This was the movement for the entire week. The Kiwi went up 0.5%. That's not a big move, and that's really not a big enough move to capture any real meaningful pips. We made the call last week that you want to be sitting on your hands a lot this week, and it was a good call. Dollar loss, CAD lost. Other than that, really flat across the board. Now, cryptos would have been the same had we done this on Thursday. However, Thursday night, we got some news that Silvergate Capital, it is a bank stock, and it was a bank stock that was really heavily involved in the crypto space, specifically moving money between crypto brokers and customers. They basically came out and said, we're probably out of business. They delayed all their SEC reports and said, hey, we're working on it. Once you hear stuff like this, things pretty much go out of business. So this really puts some pressure here on all of the crypto space across the board. Let's get an actual score of where we are in equities. And let's just take a look at everything to set us up for the upcoming week. We're at an overall 0, and it's because we are between the 20 and 50-day moving average with really no clear trend in sight. I want to take a look this week at the 10-year US government bond. So we are back up to where we were in November, right around 4%. This is the highest we've been in 4 months. And the market actually took it in stride pretty well. As we broke out above 4%, the market actually shrugged it off and went higher. That is the opposite of what we would expect to happen, but I think rates are likely to move higher, which is why I think that the equity markets probably have a ceiling above them, where it's going to be really hard for equities to run much as long as interest rates are going higher. And here we are over here in the crypto space. As I talked earlier, I said, hey, if we checked in on these things on Thursday, it would have been a pretty flat week. Friday was a big down day, and you can see we are now breaking down below moving averages. That being said, we have not really cleared down below this support level. Our overall call is crypto is still sideways. If we get breakdown below these levels, then we'll have to get a little bit more bearish. But right now, simply just sideways. We're not interested all that much in crypto at the moment. This week, there is a ton of news, so buckle up, get ready. We've got the RBA on Monday night. We will be meeting live as a firm to trade this, and we will be making some trades live here. The expectations is they are going to raise 0.25%, and what's likely to happen, we'll have to see what the Aussie does on that move. Tuesday, we hear from Chairman Powell. People are very interested on what he's going to say after the latest round of really hot inflation numbers. Expect there to be some movement in the dollar on Tuesday. Wednesday, we have our second central bank. We have the Bank of Canada out at 10 a.m. We will be watching this one. And then take a look at Thursday. Thursday, we have our third central bank meeting. We have the Bank of Japan. Typically, we say you can sleep through the Bank of Japan. Not right now, not anymore. We have a new central bank president, Ueda, and we have interventions going on. Expect the Japanese yen to be very volatile on Thursday. And hold on, because we're not done yet. We have the US and Canadian employment reports on Friday morning. We are also going to be meeting live as a firm to trade those reports. As you can see, this is the week. Last week we said, hold on, trade less. Sit on your hands, go do something else. This week, it's the opposite. Get ready, trade more. There's going to be lots and lots of opportunity. So across the board, I think there's going to be some great movements. But here is the thing. A lot of times we can say it's going to be a risk on movement or a risk off movement based on the underlying trend of the market. Right now, we can't say that. Every trade needs to be taken on an individual basis with no concern about risk on, risk off. Just throw that away this week and just go with relative strength and weakness. We've got 3 central bank announcements and Powell speaking on Tuesday, and then we've got the employment reports on Friday. As I said, it is going to be a great week of trading, so buckle up and get ready. We should be able to make some good pips this week. All right, let's go into each currency one by one, break them all down. We're going to get our trend scores and our velocity scores. Remember, our trend score is the overall direction it's going. And our velocity score is a shorter term view of what is the speed it's going. So again, trend is long and slow, velocity shorter and faster. So here we have Bitcoin. Bitcoin just barely broke down. I'm not ready to say that Bitcoin is in a downtrend because we have not broken below prior lows. This is just one candle. I'm not going to react to this at all. Look, I wasn't looking to be long Bitcoin anyway, so this to me is just simply, I'm a spectator. At the moment, lots of downside. You can see this all happened very quickly when the news came out, and really we haven't done anything after that. So Bitcoin is a -1, -3. Come over to Bitcoin Cash. It was already a little weaker, so this is a -2, -3. Over to Litecoin, same as Bitcoin, -1, -3. We just barely broke. But look, there's no reason to say it's in a downtrend. We are not in a downtrend yet. This is simply just sideways. So the cryptos have short-term velocity to the downside. And if you just had to buy a crypto, which you don't have to do anything, but if you had to, here's the best looking one, Litecoin. We've actually come off the bottom and there's been some buyers. The only crypto that actually had 5 candles that actually moved higher after the news, I still don't want to buy it. But if I had to buy it, Litecoin is at a -1, -2, which is the best score in the crypto space. Coming over here to Forex, this is where I think the fireworks are going to be this week, specifically in dollar, yen, and Aussie. Those are going to be the, oh boy, I got to throw CAD in there too, because we got the Bank of Canada and the CAD is looking to possibly break out. I think those 4 currencies are going to give you so many opportunities. I don't think you want to even mess around with the rest. And plus, they're not really giving you great signals anyway, other than the pound. We'll check on that in a second. So here we have the dollar. We got a pullback this week in the dollar. Now take a look at this pullback. That is a very calm, orderly pullback. When something runs up and then has this little pullback and then runs up, has these little pullbacks, that's a very strong pattern here. So dollar still looks good. I still like dollar long. It just had a little pullback this week. And you can see that as of right now, we've got a -1 on our velocity. So just a little bit of downward velocity short term. Once that turns, I think you want to be long dollar going into some news this week. The yen was pretty much the same thing. We had in a downtrend. And this week, we really just took a pause. Just took a pause here. So for me, yen is still looking like a good short here, -2. But in the short term, we have just plateaued. We're really not going anywhere. So -2 and a 0 on our velocity score. Here we have the Swiss franc. Now the Swiss franc is right between moving averages on a daily chart. We've got a 0 on the trend score and a +1. I mean, it's just barely showing a tiny little strength at the moment, but look at this. Swiss franc has been completely uninteresting. Throw away any trades on the Swiss franc until it actually shows it's going to move. Come over here to the euro. The euro was actually trying to break out. And we broke out above this longer term resistance line here where we hit it a whole bunch of times. Again, this is the euro basket that we're looking at. The euro against all the other 7 currencies we trade. We tried to break out above this, but as you can see, pull back. Look, I've got to give the euro +2. It is solidly above moving averages. Moving averages are sort of sloping higher. The problem is velocity score is a big old dud here. So until the euro gets moving, I've got to look at other things. Coming over here to the pound. Now the pound is starting to look interesting. The pound has been on the shelf for me for a long time. I can't even remember if I've even traded pound this year. Actually, I don't think I have. It's starting to look a little interesting here where we have moved up above these moving averages. The moving averages are going to cross here for the first time since the first of the year. If we can break out above this, I will be much more likely to put pound on my list of currencies to go long. But until then, I really just, this is an early trade. So if that's the kind of trader you are where you like to get into these early turns and early trades, okay, maybe you take a shot. Me, I've been around this game for a long time. I'm going to take the easier bets that I'm going to go ahead and buy this when it actually does break out. It might be in a week or two, but I'm going to wait here on this. But short term, I have to admit that if I had to make a trade right here, right now, I would trade pound. It looks like it has the most going for it. Coming over to the Canadian dollar, you can see the CAD has gone nowhere. It's gone nowhere, both on the trend and the velocity score. So it just tells you right now it's not going anywhere. This trade is dead. There's no reason to trade CAD until the Bank of Canada comes out. If we can break up or down, I will absolutely trade this either way, but I am not looking at it at all at the first part of this week. Aussie was my favorite short for last week, and it didn't really do much. You can see we had 5 days where it just basically went nowhere, had a little bit of an update at the end of the week. So for me, this is still a good solid -2, but for the moment, it is not ready to short. I have to wait for that velocity to turn down and to break down below these levels. Aussie is still a short in my opinion, but I think we have to wait for the RBA to come out, and possibly that is the thing that's going to send it down to its next level. So I'm not looking to trade Aussie until after the RBA report. And here's the Kiwi. The Kiwi tried to bounce off its bottom. It's been in more of a downtrend over the last 6 weeks. We did have a rally here, hit up against resistance. Look, if you say to yourself, hey, you know what, I want to short the Kiwi on a short-term basis, okay, I could see it coming back down to where it was. I don't think it's a great trade. I think there's better trades out there. And it's only a -1 at the moment with really a very little velocity. Kiwi, okay, maybe later in the week you could take a look to short it, but to me, there's just so many other interesting trades. So here we are in the trend score. If you take a look at what's really trending higher, we have euro and dollar are really the two strong ones. I threw pound up there because it's starting to look a little interesting. I do think this pound trade is very early. I think if you want to really make a better trade, you wait for a week or two and make sure that that pound is going to start trending in the right direction. On the downside, the only thing moving at a plus or -2 or better is the yen and the Aussie. So I think it's very clear. Euro and dollar long, Aussie and yen short. But here's the problem. When you take a look at the short-term moves, all of a sudden, you can see it is a mess. We want to be short Aussie, Aussie's at a +2. We want to be short yen, yen's at a 0. We want to be long dollar, it's at a -1. So right now, everything is simply building energy until we start to get some better moves. This week is much more likely to be a better trading environment than last week. So let's take a look at those possible trades. It's pretty simple. Euro dollar long, Aussie yen short. So let's take a look. I'm going to start off where I did last week, looking at Aussie dollar short. So here we are. This is a 4-hour chart. And you can see the Aussie dollar has been on its way down, and we've got a really nice little low base forming here. If I want to be short Aussie dollar, it's not ready to go right now. As you can see, we've got this low base, and we are potentially going to break out above this. Now look, we have no idea what's going to happen. This is the end of Friday. We'll have to see what happens the next day. I think you want to wait until 67 breaks. So 67 is going to be the point where I think is the earliest you can get in. If you are looking to maybe be a shorter term trader, I'd say maybe take a half position next week if it looks like it's going to bounce off of this resistance level, and then grab another half when it breaks down below. Possibly you could do that. But for me, this trade needs to wait. Plus, we do have RBA coming out on Monday night, and that is going to be a very risky trade to already be in, because we're going to get a pretty wild movement, I think. I think you want to wait. I think you want to wait and maybe try to catch it when it breaks down below 67 if the RBA sends the Aussie lower. So this is my first one, Aussie dollar. Now you could also pair it up against the euro. So if we take a look at euro Aussie, we can see it's doing about the same thing. And most things are just simply basing here. But we have a base here on euro Aussie. So 158 is going to be the area where I start getting interested. You can see it's a mirror image of Aussie dollar. Okay, maybe you buy a half position here, have a wide stop. If it breaks out above 158 after the RBA, you grab another half position. I think it's just best to wait and look at 158 for the entry on this. Now, this is specifically Aussie trades. We're looking to be long or short Aussie after the RBA announces on Monday night. Remember, if we want to be long Aussie, we want to pair it up against something that's weak. So what was the weakest currency? It was yen. It was yen, so we want to be Aussie yen. If you do want to be long Aussie, then I think this is where you want to be hunting. Now you can see that Aussie and yen have basically been flat against each other, which means they've both been weak. So there hasn't really been any change between the two. I think a breakout above this 93 could possibly be a point. If you did want to be long Aussie off the RBA news, then I think you want to be long Aussie against the yen. But I do not think you want to be in the yen when the Bank of Japan announces on Thursday. So you want to wrap this trade up before Thursday. And then the last pair I want to take a look at is dollar yen. I think dollar yen is the best trading pair at the moment. It's been all year. It's been a great trade all year long. And you can see here we are. We're starting to work our way higher. We've just had a nice pullback from a new high here on dollar yen. The question is it going to bounce here? It needs to bounce here. If it doesn't bounce here on a 4-hour chart, then it's telling me that, okay, this little run we've experienced ever since middle of February, it's probably over, and we probably need to have a little corrective action. If it holds this level, 136-ish, 135.50, and starts to move back up, I think it's a decent trade. Right here, right now, the only thing you can say is it's in this range. If it bounces off the bottom, okay, maybe you might have a trade up to 137, but I don't think you have any reason to think it's going to go past 137. If you want to take a position, again, half position. If it comes up and breaks through 137, take another half position. That'll be a really nice trade. But I don't think there's any reason to jump into this right now. Right now, the momentum is saying lower. EMA is moving lower. RSI is moving lower. Parabolic SAR is moving lower. At this point, I think you want to just wait. But I do think that this is going to be the best trade of next week. Dollar yen. We got PAL. We got Bank of Japan. We've got payroll report. I think the dollar yen cross is going to be the best one. So stay active on it. And look, and I think you could be long or short it based on what's happening in the market. This is a week to be very fluid. And as I said, don't really be in a camp of risk on or risk off because the market is telling you nothing about that. You just want to be really fluid and react to the relative strength and weakness that shows up. So this week, equities are in no man's land. Don't think you're going to get any help or any signal from what the macro trend is doing. This week's going to be a great trading week. Be fluid. Make sure that you are looking at the schedule and ready for the announcements coming out because they're going to be pushing things around quite a bit. Stay fluid. Grab the things that are moving. Pair them up against the things that are moving the other way. And it's going to be a great trading week. Thanks for joining me, everyone. That is the Currency Room. Goodbye.